Every one of us is tasked with bringing the world to perfection. This week's Parsha reveals a secret to help us do just that. We normally read the Torah one Parsha at a time, but forget, that's not how it's written. There isn't supposed to be a week-long break between one Parsha and the next. They flow from one into the other. Sometimes, like this week, we get a double Parsha, and two Parashot that we usually read a week apart are read together and gives us a chance to examine their interconnectedness. But sometimes that interconnectedness raises more questions. Let's take a high-level fly-through of Parsha Acharei and Kedoshim. In Parsha Acharei, we have the details of the of, of the Yom Kippur service, some laws around offerings and of consuming blood, and then a list of the forbidden relationships. In Parsha Kedoshim, we have a whole series of laws around how to treat our fellow man, followed by a list of the punishments for engaging in the forbidden relationships that we read about at the end of Parsha Acharei. That's an unusual order. Why describe what relationships are forbidden at the end of Parashah Acharei, and then digress to a different topic, only to later come back and finish the discussion of those forbidden relationships? Why not group the punishments with the list of the forbidden relationships? I think contained in this is a critical lesson, a lesson we need to all learn when talking to our brothers and sisters who are looking to deepen their engagement with their Jewish heritage. Judaism is not about avoiding punishment. Judaism is about creating a holy society. In Parsha Acharei, we were warned not to bring offerings outside of the designated spot, not to consume blood, and not to engage in certain relationships. Not because there is necessarily anything inherently wrong with these things, but because those behaviors were core practices of Egypt and other nations at that time, and we were supposed to build a different kind of a nation. So right after telling us what we can't do, the Torah tells us what we should be doing in its place, how we should behave in order to create a holy nation. We don't pair the thou shalt nots with their corresponding punishments. We pair them with the thou shalls. Don't avoid transgression because of fear of being punished. Instead, behave properly in order to create a holy society. And how do we create that holy society? Well, Parsha Kedoshim has our recipe. Honor your parents, keep Shabbat, give to the poor, be honest in business, love your neighbor as yourself, and more. Chaverim, my friends, we spent far too much time talking about the thou shalt nots of Judaism, and not enough time talking about the thou shalls. For example, Parsha Kedoshim places Shabbat front and center as a key to creating a holy society. But when we talk about Shabbat, we tend to focus on the thou shalt nots. We focus on the 39 forms of the forbidden labor. We talk about all the things we're not permitted to do on Shabbat. Shabbat is not about avoiding the thou shalt nots out of fear of being punished. Shabbat is about engaging in the thou shalls in order to create a day of holiness. Years ago, I remember hearing a wonderful analogy. People love swimming. But if you ask someone to come over and hang out in your pool, you don't begin the conversation by listing off all the things they can't do in the pool. No board games, no video games, no diving, no sitting underwater for hours on end. You focus on all the fun you're going to have. What if we flipped the way we talk about Shabbat? Instead of thinking about all the things we can't do, let's think about all the things we can do. Let's focus on the mitzvah of having Shabbat. Not once have I experienced a Friday night Shabbat dinner where at the end of it I thought, you know what would have made this evening better? If I would have been allowed to harvest crops or done laundry, or if everyone was on their phone scrolling Instagram. No, everyone leaves the table thinking, what an amazing evening. Such wonderful people, such meaningful connections and conversations, such amazing food, such wonderful singing and inspiring words of Torah. Now I pray for the day when every Jew around the world fully keeps Shabbat, the thou shalt nots and the thou shalls. But getting there is a long journey. And when you begin on that journey, rather than looking at Shabbat and asking, what do I need to stop doing in order to avoid transgressing the laws of Shabbos? What do we need to take away? Instead, ask, what can I add to turn Friday night into Shabbat? So here's my challenge to each and every one of us. Let's turn this Shabbat into a thou shalt Shabbat. Let's focus on all the things we can do that makes Shabbat special, and not spend so much time focusing on the things we can't do. Try adding a few more thou shalls to your Shabbos experience this week. Add some singing to your Friday night. Add a special food that you only serve on Shabbat. I remember growing up that we were only allowed to have pop on Shabbos. I know a lot of families have special Shabbat cereals that the kids are only allowed to have on Saturday morning. Open the special bottle of wine or scotch that you've been saving and serve it only on Shabbos. Add something that makes Shabbat different from the other 6 days of the week. Even something small can be enough to turn Friday night into Shabbat. And if you're not up to doing that yourself, reach out. We'd love to have you at our Shabbos table. That's one thing we could learn from this week's Parsha. How will you step up this week to bring the world a little closer to perfection? Shabbat Shalom and Am Yisroel Chai.